So, Deirdre, welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to be first speaker and sharing some of your work with us. I think I want to start briefly in the present and and then go back to the past a little bit to how you got here. So, what I want to ask you is if you can share with us a little bit about the project you're currently working on with the State Department in bringing young people here and telling us a little about that.
I'd be happy to. No, thank you so much for inviting me. I want to say the last time I was on Zoom was with a set of climate change researchers, and I was doing a leadership class with them. And I was just sitting here and thinking about that time and watching each of you and listening to your hearts. And, this is something that gives me hope. There is good people in the world doing good work. And I thank you for your introductions and what's working you. We need that, or I need that to hear when we can get discouraged, to think, oh, look at all this amazing love and focus that's occurring. But you asked me a question. You asked about this work I'm doing with a Middle Eastern Partnership Initiative, and I've been working with this State Department program for about 7, 8 years. And what it is that each summer we bring in about 100 students from all over the Middle East and Northern Africa. And they come to Washington, D.C. for a couple days, and then they're sent out for 6 weeks to host universities. And we get about 20 of those students here at Montana State. It's an extraordinary program. I do intensive leadership training with them, conflict resolution, and including in that we do dialogues. Each week they do a current events dialogue where they pick a topic, why women wear the hijab, or, should women be president? And for the very first time last summer, we actually had the students wanting to speak about LGBT rights in the MENA region, which is quite extraordinary for those of you who have worked in the Middle East. We invite folks from the community and students from the university, and we have something like 8, 10, 12 dialogue circles over this huge lawn, and that gives me hope. That is an extraordinary part of what I get to do. So I'm working with them right now as well, because I'll be going to Morocco in March. We bring all the students back together for a follow-on conference 6 months after, and really ask them to encapsulate what they've learned and what they want to be able to do in their own communities. So this is fun. This is the first year I've done it, is that I'm training facilitators to handle the panels and these very formal poster presentations that the students will be providing around the projects that they want to do. So it's very much in my mind working with these students. And meanwhile, it's very exciting and fun, and the students are learning new skills and starting their careers, and we probably won't have our students from Libya join us, because they will not be allowed to get visas to Morocco, nor Syria, nor Iraq, which is unfortunate, and I'm just now hearing Yemen as well. So it always becomes very real as we're working with these students they're these young, bouncy 19 to 24-year-olds and dealing with very, very extraordinary problems. Our students from Gaza were not able to attend last summer for obvious reasons. And so it's an extraordinary program. The students, just to give you a sense of what's happening, the students often have never met friends from these other communities. So that's been extraordinary to see, there see Syrians and Lebanese students becoming dear friends, seeing students who are told that they're legally not supposed to be friends with Palestinians, or someone who has an Israeli. Well, actually, it's if you have their Arab 48 participants, and they're told you are not allowed to be friends with anyone who has an Israeli passport. So, it's just extraordinary as they're being silly and wrestling each other on the ground and realizing, what they've come from and what they go home to. So I feel extremely blessed to get to do this work, and humbled on a daily basis, I will tell you.
Deidre, I'm curious about a little bit about the basics. They're going to be in this country for how many months?
That program, I work on about 5 different State Department programs, and in that program, they're only with us 6 to 8 weeks, I think. I'd have to add it up for you, but they come at the end of June, and we send them back mid-August.
So what are they actually doing while they're here? Is it all classrooms, or are they out and about doing other things as well?
Yes, it is both. So we have them doing volunteer activities, meeting with NGOs, conducting these current events dialogues, meeting with the Rotary, and then also classes. They have civics class, and then of course the leadership development classes. And they've made dinners for kids who are recovering from cancer. So we try to make sure that they leave having a sense of civic engagement, of their own leadership potential, and figuring out. The hope is to send them back wanting to make their communities better, and also to create better connections between the MENA region in the U.S. as well as across the MENA region. So that's the goal. Very intensive, and for the last 3 years, and we'll have it this year as well. That's usually during Ramadan. So that adds a whole nother element. when my students have been up all night and then they want to sleep in class all day because they're hungry and exhausted. So it's a really fascinating program.
So I
don't get them long. Another program that you guys would be interested in is a program called the Community Solutions Program. And that is activists, international activists from all over what the State Department would call the developing world, which is kind of a interesting term. But they are doing things like reintegrating child soldiers in Liberia, and dealing with genetically modified food and rights of agricultural workers in Peru. The list goes on, working with Ebola patients in Liberia. So they are 25 to 35 years old. So it's the next level up. And so I get to do leadership development training with them, and they are with us for 4 months. They come, and so say I'm doing LGBT rights in Bogota. I get sent to an NGO who's doing the same work in the US, and I get to do networking and provide what I know about this work, and learn tons as well. And meanwhile, we do an online leadership development process with them, and I coach them. I get to coach each of them through creating a personal leadership plan, and then they present those in their final conference. And so that I just finished. That was that ended at the beginning of December, and yeah, just that's a program that's very direct. When you think about the work you're doing, and you say, okay, am I doing the work I'm supposed to be doing? I get to help people who are on the ground. And so that has felt very good to watch them take back, dialogue circles to Indonesia, for example, and be working with teen leadership there, or what, the list goes on. So I would recommend looking at that. If you need to know that we're not alone, the Community Solutions Program would be one, and that's run through IREX, but it's a State Department program.
So Deidre, this is just amazing and inspiring to me, all this stuff that you're doing, and also thinking about the rest of your career, the 4 books that you've written on conflict resolution. and your work on the faculty at Montana State University and also at Columbia University, and how much you've done. So, we've talked about this before, and I want to ask you here in this circle if you can share with us a little bit about your story, about how did you get into this work? Here you are living in Bozeman, Montana, and
Yeah.
you're doing all this work with people all over the world. How did you get into this work of global conflict resolution?
Oh, well, you will have, I think you will appreciate it because I'm the eldest of four sisters. And so we all grew up fighting like cats and dogs. My poor parents, who survived that somehow. But our house was full of with screaming and fighting and scratching. And so I grew up, I guess, fairly comfortable with conflict. And yet didn't really understand its potential. And I thought about how I got here. I was in a meeting. I was explaining to Arya last week that I was a project manager at IBM. I started my career out as you might expect. I was a math and Spanish major, so I got a job at IBM programming 30 years ago. And that took me into project management. So I am managing.
Does this woman look like an IBMer?
No, not really. No, especially if you get to know me, you'll be like, oh my, that's a very interesting fit. But I did love project management because I got to bring people together and, diverse people and work towards a common goal. And I got to know these clients that we had, which were hospitals who were out on the bleeding edge of technology, installing electronic medical record systems. And we were one of the first systems.
Got it.
So, right. And Kaiser was one of my early clients. I would come out to Walnut Creek and hang out with the folks there. And that part I really loved. Yeah. But anyway, IBM wasn't able to continue the product and needed to cancel it or to discontinue it. And I was facilitating the meeting when that was announced. And it was a whole lot of conflict. And I didn't quite know what to do. I thought, oh, geez, I'm going to get fired because everybody's screaming and yelling or just sitting there looking just upset. And so I, for the lack of anything better, asked questions that I knew my clients would want to ask to IBM. And then I started translating from hospital language to IBM language and back and forth. And honestly, I had no idea what I was doing. I just did, it was it's an emergency. What in the heck can I do? And the meeting transformed, and I saw for the first time the extraordinary potential of conflict. I watched the opportunities that started to arise when we could stay in that discord and start to look for solution. And as I was sharing with Arya last week, I said, everybody came out of the meeting and like, you were amazing and you're so fantastic and you know how to facilitate a meeting. And I was like, oh man, I want people to say that about me all the time. So I'm going to go figure out what the heck I just did. And that sent me on a wonderful trajectory. I just then coincidentally, a friend of mine asked if I might want to take mediation training. And I said, oh, that sounds excellent. I want to, I could really use help. I just have been in the middle of all this conflict. And of course it wasn't going away. And so I became trained as a mediator and I started to mediate for the post office. And I had moved to Montana by this time. So I was a contractor with IBM towards the end. So I started picking up other consulting work and just learning more and more about conflict resolution and tips and strategies, and really started to see how conflict is really the only place where opportunity lies, and that we need it desperately in order to transform and to evolve. And this also sent me to study with Matthew Fox, and I went to the University of Creation Spirituality in downtown Oakland on I think 42nd and Broadway, and I was actually 3 of the most amazing years of my life. 3 or 4, I guess it was. And I ended up starting to teach for them towards the end. And the whole focus was I want to understand what the world's traditions have to say about how to overcome challenges, how to deal with difficult people, how to resolve conflict. And that is something that I am absolutely passionate about, and I continue to love to study. So that sent me writing my dissertation was my first book, called The Way of Conflict. And that's what got me going. And I just, you will notice you get me started talking about conflict, and I don't want to stop.
Deirdre, when you first told me about your studying and then teaching with Matthew Fox, really helped me understand something about you.
Yeah.
And Matthew Fox really managed to transform his own conflict as a Benedictine monk within the Catholic Church, and into the kind of spiritual leader he is now.
Yeah.
So what I want to move into the discussion that you sort of bridged us into, which is you discovered for yourself that that conflict is really where opportunity lies.
Mm-hmm.
And you said to me when we spoke earlier that's really what you're passionate about, is working with conflict as a spiritual practice. So let's go there. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Well, if you look at it from a new cosmology standpoint, without difference, this universe wouldn't exist, right? That we have discord, and then we move into breakthrough. And in breakthrough, there is a wealth of potential solutions when we see that through the evolution of this earth. And then a few of those solutions are the elegant solution that then survives, and we move forward. So being alive is about working with conflict and seeing that the conflict has 4 phases. And I found that both by working with Matthew Fox's work with the 4 paths of creation spirituality. And he talks about the via positiva, or the positive path, where we, bask in what is, and we are in awe. And then we move into the negative path, and this is where we can become hopeless, where loss occurs, where what was no longer is, but we don't know what's coming. So you can see how the change cycle, which you'll find within within the study of systems and of biology, is that we have stability, and we move into disequilibrium, and there's that point where we don't know what's next, and it's dark and hopeless and helpless, and the new form hasn't emerged. The old form no longer works, and we go to the creative path, or that place of breakthrough or evolution, where new possibilities start to emerge, and many possibilities emerge, and we want to look for that solution that is that moves us ahead and that is elegant. And then last, it's implementing that solution, and that's the transformative path, or the via transformativa from creation spirituality. And all of this, for those of you who haven't followed Matthew Fox's work, is from Meister Eckhart, who is a medieval Christian mystic. But again, it was as though he started to explain the music, and there is a symphony that lives behind all of this. I also studied as well with Angelus Arian, who looks at the archetypes, these 4 main archetypes, and they too fit into this path of change. And we see it in the seasons and the directions, and it continues on. And so I go to each tradition and find that this is the path that we're asked to move through, is to celebrate what is, and as that form disappears, is to go into that place of of not knowing and letting go of antiquated forms and moving to look for what's new and possible and evolve and move to the new into a new potential reality and then act. And so I describe it as we move into disequilibrium into chaos, evolution, and back to stability. And each of these phases they have spiritual practices that go with them, or just very smart leadership practices that go with them. For the first path, for example, is asking really good questions and coming from a place of gratitude. All the work that, as I listen to each of you, that you're doing. And we were talking at the beginning of this call about listening and the importance of listening. And then in that place where we just don't know what the solution is for climate change, for this whole issue with ISIL, and the list for Palestine and Israel, the list goes on and on, is how do we sit with that not knowing and be flexible and practice detachment, which is, caring deeply from an objective place. And looking for those places where I'm holding on too tightly to an old form or an antiquated way of thinking, and how to expand myself so that the breakthrough can occur and then I can listen for that solution. That I keep coming back to elegance. From the Art of War, it talks about a solution that has a lot of sure, which is SHIH. And it's this place where you just go, oh yeah, that's it, It's like when you're playing chess, and each time you play chess, the moves, you can't just say, oh, this is the point where I'm supposed to move the knight. It's looking for that, oh, that's the next step. And looking for that and holding that, and then having that courage to be an activist, to act, to speak our truth. And again, that is a spiritual practice of showing up. And how do I show up in a way where I'm speaking from my own truth and not overlaying my truth onto everyone else? And I think of the Trotmans' incredible work that they're doing in terms of bringing people's individual truths forward and looking for that greater solution. So you can tell I can keep going on this for a long time, but that's to me the spiritual practice. So in my own life, to finish up, I notice each day and in each situation, I'll say, so where am I? And maybe, oh my goodness, change is occurring. I just got some new information that I don't really like, right? Oh, the budget that I thought I had was not the budget that I need, right? Love those conversations. It's like, okay, so I need to ask more questions. I know I'm in that place of that initial part of conflict. I need to ask questions internally and externally. When I get to that place where I'm like, there's no hope here. It's how do I deepen into that practice of the via negativa and be with not knowing, being with groundlessness, as the Buddhist tradition provides us. So thinking about how do I sit with suffering, witness, to provide that ear that we're needed. So each phase is incredibly deep. And if I see it as a spiritual practice, the whole thing shifts extraordinarily, because it becomes a place of learning instead of, oh, I hate conflict, make it go away now. So conflict can become a game of sorts, right? The big life game. So, and that from a brain perspective is extraordinary. Because if I am in a place of gratitude and interest and learning about conflict, I'm going to perform a whole heck of a lot better.
Thank you, Deidre. I feel like I have 1,000 questions, and I could keep on going with you for 2 hours.
Oh.
You've got, and maybe there's another, at least one more circle in all of this. We can sort of think about that. But in the meantime, for this circle, I want to ask you for a question that you would like to pose for all of us to reflect on. and we each get about 3 to 5 minutes to reflect on that question.
So the question that was coming to me, I was thinking of Joanna Macy's work with Active Hope. You know, here's an amazing lifelong activist in her 80s who, you know, dives very directly into the climate change conflict. And what I feel like I've learned from her, you know, reading her book and this idea of active hope is, I thought it might be interesting to discuss where do you get hope when it is dark and you lose that, when you have that groundlessness. What reframes the situation for you so that you can sit with not knowing and start to look for the breakthroughs in whatever conflict. But I know that this is a group that is caring deeply about how we find creative solutions around sticking around as human beings on this planet.
Okay, so the question is, when things look dark and hopeless, where do you personally
Mhm.
find hope? Yeah?
Yes. Yeah. How do you create active hope?
Okay.